Hi, this is Tim Robbins, and you're watching The Whole podcast.
Welcome to The Whole. I am Rob Sprans.
I'm Lori Levine.
And we are joined by Matthew McConaughey. Matthew, thank you so much for joining us.
Rob, Lori, good to be here, man. I like your intro. I like your lighting. I like your whole stuff.
All right, thanks.
We're really excited for this.
Yeah, we are. And you know, the book, you have a book out called Greenlights, which is, congratulations, it's a #1 bestseller, which that alone is must feel amazing. And you know, you think you know someone when they're a celebrity. You think you have a sense of who they are. And 1 minute it's okay, is he like more like Wooderson? Is he more like the Lincoln commercial guy? And I strongly recommend that everybody gets the audio version of this book, because I've learned so much about who you are, and you are one of the most unique people I think I've ever known about. So what made you want to write this book in the beginning? Because obviously you don't need to do something like this, but you had said it's a memoir, but at the same time you're not retiring or anything like that. So what made you want to do this to begin with?
Well, I've been keeping journals for 36 years. Been threatening to open them all up and see if something was worth sharing. Never had the courage to do it for the last 15 years. And finally, a couple of years ago, I got the courage to do it. And with a good, healthy kick in the backside from my wife, who said, go away on your own with your journal and yourself from the last 36 years of writing and see what you got, and don't come back till you got something. Part of it may have been because I was coming on 50. But I didn't, if it wasn't consciously that. I know this. Look, in acting, there are 4 filters from my raw expression until it gets to you on a screen. I'm doing someone else's script, directed by someone else, lensed in a camera by someone else, edited by someone else, and then it's put in a package and put in front of you in a theater or in your living room. I wanted to writing the book, I was like, that gets rid of 3 of the filters. It's the written word. You only have 1 filter, just directly from me to that. I'm directing it. It's my script. I'm editing it, and then I'll share it and hope it translates. You know, my hunch was that something would be in those diaries worth sharing. I hope that's true. And that seems to be true to some extent from the people I'm talking to, like yourself, that are telling me, hey, here's what it meant to me. I learned a lot about you, but actually it made me question myself on this note, or I was inspired by this, or I thought this joke was great, or I thought this story was similar to a story I had in my own life and how I handled it, or how maybe I'm going to handle it next time. So I think one of the tricks that happened is the more personal I got in the book, the more relatable it became to more people, which seems surprising, but makes complete sense. You know, which I think it's that way with any art that you put out. And so to hear how it's translating is my biggest reward. And to hear people have specific stories, different stories of how it translated to them, that for me makes me go, all right, good.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned it, you called it a playbook that you wrote based on your own experiences that other people can use. And yeah, there are absolutely moments in there where I'm like, wow, he makes a good point. You know, I'll go right to, you know, there's this analogy that you made. It's actually not even an analogy, but it's reality, where you had a truck in high school and, you know, you were the cool guy with the truck and it made everybody laugh and everything was going great. And then you decided to go buy a sports car. And it didn't work out so much for you.
Failed experiment.
But it's, you know, it's that theme is throughout, is try to be yourself, or try to find who you are instead of trying to become somebody that you're not just to impress. And
the same with when you started going to acting classes and then you weren't getting all the roles because it wasn't you. It wasn't you finding your man, as you say.
Yeah. Well, you know, I you know, like the truck story, we could try, it's fun to try things out. But then you learn, oh, like me, the sports car is not for me. I'm going to go back to the truck because I was relying on the sports car. I don't know if you see the picture in the book, I was leaning against the sports car going, let the sports car do the work for me. Aren't I so cool in my red sports car? Well, all of a sudden the girls were like, no, you're not so cool.
Right.
You think your car is cooler than you are. We're not interested. And so I traded back in, got the truck, and I was back. But yeah, before, we learn by trial and error, like I did in that instance, we often do try to be someone else. Look, in Hollywood, my job, people think, oh, you're playing someone else. I'm like, I'm not really. When actors do it well, we're actually playing a real innate part of ourselves, because we're portraying and emulating someone that represents the human existence. And we all have that in us personally. So when I do my best work, I'm being more me, even though I may be playing another character. But we tend to try and look for things that are outside ourselves. And I don't know why we do that. You're going to find all those characters in yourself. If we just take the time to go, who am I? What the hell matters to me? What am I about? What am I not about? Mm-hmm. And that's a daunting task. People, I think not enough of us embrace that very valuable solitude or that Socratic dialogue to go, how do I feel about this? How do I feel about a situation? And I look, I had awkward times. I remember in college, still to this day, I'll watch a movie, a collective experience in a theater, and I never laugh at the joke that everyone else laughs at. I'll be the only one laughing in the theater at some little thing that made me laugh. And all of a sudden you get kind of self-conscious, like going, why am I the only one laughing at that? Or why am I crying at the birth, but not crying at death? I don't know. Is that okay? Right. And then you learn these things, whatever your own idiosyncrasies are. And usually they're worth saying, that's who I am. That's how I feel about it. Instead of trying to be something different, let me be honest with who I am and say that's okay.
Mm-hmm. And that's fantastic. But, in a true being yourself move, you didn't just write this book like normal people would do and just say, I want to write a book. I'm just going to sit down with my laptop and write a book. You went ahead and went off into solitude to do this to an extreme level, Matthew.
Yes. I wanted to be forced to be with myself and who I've been the last 50 years. I didn't want an out. I didn't want phone reception. I didn't want internet. I didn't want even electricity for a while. I wanted to go through the hours and get bored and go, well, you got one thing to entertain yourself, McConaughey. It's right here. It's your diary. So I didn't want the out. I didn't want the friend to call. I didn't want the place to go drive. And so there were times where I was, early on, had to get my legs under me to go, the first few days were like 8 hours of writing. But then after about day 4, it was 17 hours a day writing. The hardest part of the last sort of 48 days were reminding myself that I needed to go to sleep because I was just in a fever pitch, on fire, loving, and it was coming together. And I said, I think that's good. So it ended up being a really good time writing it. But yeah, I wanted to be forced with myself, to be with only myself and not have an out for attention or boredom or something else.
So and then I read that you would climb a hill to go call your family once a day.
At 6 o'clock, there was one hill about a ways away that I could get a couple of bars reception to call home. And I would go up there, make that call. My wife would be like, great, thanks for checking in. Now get your butt back down there and go right. And as y'all probably know, when your significant other says, don't call, or you don't have to call, that's when we call. That's when we make sure to call, and we want to call more. Right. But yeah, that was my one spot to check back in. How's the family? How the kids? And I'd go up there for 10 minutes a night and then head back down the hill.
So where was this specifically?
This is out in Fort Davis, Texas. It's actually where I was conceived. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. There's a beautiful desert out there. And the first stint was there. The second stint was to the river, the Llano River, where I learned to swim. I tell that story in the book about Mom throwing me in the river and saying, either go over the waterfall's edge or learn to swim. And I made it to the bank. Then I went to East Texas, where I was raised. I went to different places that had seminal sort of marks in my life. And it was a total of 5 different places for 10 to 12 days a piece.
Yeah, and I was thinking of that when I was listening to it, because like I mentioned, I had the audio version. For all of us that are quarantining right now and adjusted to it, you had certain parts of your life where you felt like you had to just quarantine from reality. Yeah. More so maybe not in the house, but there's an important part in the book where, and I do want to get to all the films, there's so many, but I do want to get to some of the best, but there's an important part in the book that really struck me is when Time to Kill came out, which was a fantastic film. And that was the moment where you went from, the guy, in some scenes to this was your movie. And, you and Sandra did this movie together, and this movie became kind of almost a blueprint for what your deeper roles are going to be. And all of a sudden you were famous. You weren't sometimes recognized. You were famous, and you were very honest about how that kind of freaked you out a little bit.
Yeah, it was unbalancing. I mean, all of a sudden the world was a mirror, meaning everyone had some sort of initial biography of me. Whereas the day before Time to Kill came out, I was still running into strangers. But now people are kind of going, oh my God, I'm so sorry about Miss Hud. And I'm in my mind going, wait a minute, who are you, number one? Number two, how'd you know I had a dog? Number three, how'd you know her name was Miss Hud? Number four, how'd you know she had cancer? You just skipped 4 things, talk about filters. There's 4 filters skipped and people just coming up into my life. So there was adulation. There was options, newfound options. Like all of a sudden the roof was off of what I could do. And I was like, 3 days ago, I would have done any of these scripts. I didn't have the option to do all of these things. And now you're telling me I can do all of them? And I'm like, what? You're asking me to be discerning right now and actually tell you what I really want to do when just 3 days ago I would have done any of this, but couldn't, So the excess, the options, and options, too many options can make a tyrant of any of us. You know what I mean? And so the limitless amount of yeses that came, you could call those green lights, right? You could call those green lights, limitless amount of yeses, but a lot of those would have been battery powered green lights. They're going to go out. So what's the choice? What's the choices I could make that would be really true to myself? Hopefully be a solar powered green light, so to speak. And so I need to go away. I said, I gotta get out of here. I gotta go hear myself think. I gotta go check on myself and see what matters, because there's such a frequency of onslaught of options that I was like, my feet didn't feel like they were on the ground. Then I need to go away and be forced with myself to say, okay, what matters, what doesn't? What are we going to do? How are we going to navigate this? Talk to myself in third person. What do you think, Connie? You're the only dude I'm stuck with. Can't get rid of you if I tried. So let's figure this damn thing out.
Yeah, and one of the parts that struck me the most is how, forget about strangers, how your mom handled you getting famous, the one grounding that you have. She wanted my fame more than I did. Oh my gosh. You remember tell that story? Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So I get famous. You get famous, people want to know your business. Well, it's nice to have a mother that you can come home and share intimate feelings with and questions, because it's between you and your mom, right? And negatory. I get a call one night. My buddy goes, "You watching this?" I go, "What?" He goes, "Put on," whatever it was one of the networks. It's like one of those hard copy shows or something. And there's my mom escorting a cameraman through my childhood bedroom as a teenager. She's like, "And here's where I caught him in bed with Michelle." Virginity right there, I believe. Or anyway, what I caught him doing over here. And then here's the shower. And you know what I caught him doing in there one time? I'm like, what? I call my mom. She picks up the phone. Hello? I go, "Mom, what did you do?" She's like, "What are you talking about?" And I can hear her. She's watching the show in her room. I can hear it on her. She goes, "Mom, you're watching it. I'm watching it too. It's right there. What do you mean? What are you doing, Mom?" She goes, "Oh, that." I didn't think you'd find out. I didn't think I'd find out. It's national television. She's like, oh. So I sort of quit sharing things with my mom for a while there because I was afraid it might show up Monday morning paper or whatever the 30-minute gossip show was on TV. And I knew we'd come back together. I just had to, I just gotten famous. I'm trying to handle my own career. Like I said, I'm trying to get a handle, find my own balance. I didn't need someone close to me rocking my boat as well. It was already rocky enough.
Yeah, that's supposed to be your one anchor, that you have,
You think?
I know. And it's such a, look, very few of us will ever know or understand what it's like to get to the level of fame that you have achieved. None of us will. I mean, you think about it and you wonder, wow, that would be fantastic and it would be amazing. But I can see also why it would be the opposite of that. Why all of a sudden, especially with you, where it kind of just happened, that all of a sudden you're like, what is happening? As much as you love the craft and what you do, of course you want that adulation, and you want the respect for what you're doing. You had that 10 goals in life, and one of them was to win an Oscar. So clearly your aspirations were, and congratulations, you nailed it. Clearly your aspirations were high already, and it has to be part of what you want when you do it. I mean, you're honest about that, but just how it affects you has got to be very, very strange. And I got to imagine just to this day, there are times where you just wish that part of that element just didn't exist.
Well, I mean, look, I've got a phrase I sort of said 15 years ago that I still stick to. And this is part of one of the tools that I have in the book is when you're faced with the inevitable, get relative, meaning I'm famous. Nothing I can do about it, even if I wanted to. So let's get on with it. I mean, let's deal with it. Who's going to wag who? Is my fame going to wag me? Is it going to keep me from living my life how I want to live it? Is it going to keep me from taking my son downstairs on a New York street to see his first fire engine, even though I know paparazzi are going to be there? What should I do? Should I keep him inside because I know paparazzi are going to be there? Or should I say, hey, it's my son sees his first damn fire engine. Come let the paparazzi document it all they want. I'm taking him to see his fire engine. So who's wagging who? But the phrase that I use is when people go, well, what about, does fame bother you? What's the hardships about? I go, look, man, I cashed that check a long time ago. That check cashed, yeah. So I'm never gonna, and look, my fame has given me much more opportunity and freedom and responsibility and gifts than it's taken away. I just have to, as any famous person, you have to have some anonymity. Everybody has to have some bit of an anonymous soul. So I have to, either have my own solitude in my own home or on my own property, or as you see the book, I'll go away to places where they don't know my name. Mm-hmm. I'll go to places where they don't speak the language, don't have electricity to have seen one of my movies. And I write about it in the book, but part of that, what I needed to do right after Time to Kill was I was getting all this adulation. And I was trying to measure, have I earned this? Do I deserve this? So I went away to a place where nobody knew my name. And it was a 22-day trip. And when I said goodbye, the hugs and the kisses with the men and women that I had spent time with, the tears that were running down faces, were all based off of only the man they met 22 days ago, whose name they did not know or never seen a film. That I needed that to go, it is you. Okay. It wasn't your fame. I needed that.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And there's a few different trips that you've taken. At one point you got yourself an RV and you just went driving with Ms. Hud and did what you needed.
It's recognized. They even know him in Montana.
They recognize me in Montana and many other places, but great thing about trailer life is if you don't like your backyard or you're tired of your backyard, just hitch it up and head on out.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely some Wooderson in you. There's no doubt about that. There's definitely some. Yeah, so let's touch on some of the films. You know, I did love that in the book you start with basically talking about your foundations and your family and how you grew up. And that moment where you decide you want to go to film school and you were all ready to go and be a lawyer, and you had a conversation with your father that, you know, you weren't quite sure how that's going to go. And that is a big one, especially when lawyer is the what they have in mind. You know, it wasn't like you were working at a Denny's and said, you know, I want to be in film. Right.
And dad is this Texas oil man.
Yes.
Film school seems off.
Well, from where I grew up, the arts weren't really an initiated part of our life. It was like you know, he started off as a truck driver, and then he got his own. He owned a Texaco station, and then he worked his way up as a pipe salesman, and then became successful. So in our world, it was you get a job and you work your way up the company ladder, and it had been expected of me, and I was very excited about the opportunity to become a lawyer. A defense attorney, to be exact, since I was 12 years old, nothing other. And then I was having this time where I was not sleeping well with that idea. It was the end of my sophomore year in college, because I was doing the math. I was saying, look, I got to finish school here, then I go to law school, then I got to try to get a job. I won't be able to put my imprint on life, society until I'm in my 30s. So basically, I'll be educating myself for all my entire decade of my 20s. Yeah. And I didn't like that proposition. So I've been writing short stories. Shared them with a friend who told me they were good. He even is the one who said to me, consider being in front of the camera, McConaughey. He was like, hey, you're a good looking guy and you got character. Maybe that could be for you. And I was like, I'm not gonna. Kind of couldn't even grasp that as a possibility. Although I think in the back of my mind, now that I look back, I did want to do that. So I decided I want to go to film school. A book found me that helped give me that inspiration called The Greatest Salesman in the World. And, I decided I want to go to film school, but now I've got to call my dad because he's paying for school, and I don't know how well this is going to go over. I mean, your son wants to go into the arts. I thought he was going to go, you want to what, boy? But you know what I mean? That's a hobby on Saturday, maybe, you know. But anyway, I call it, and I picked out the time, 7:30 Tuesday night. He'll be home from work. Already had dinner. He's having the first beer with mom on the couch. He'll be in a good mood. I call him up, and I say, hey, Pop. He goes, hey, how you doing, little buddy? What's up? And I said, Dad, I don't want to go to law school anymore. I want to go to film school. Pause. Quiet. And I'm thinking, oh, here it comes. He's about to go, you want to do what? But no. Instead, he says, are you sure that's what you want to do? And I immediately say, yes, sir. Another pause for about 5 seconds. And then he said three of the greatest words he could have said to me. After a 5 second pause, he goes, well, don't half-ass it. And in saying that, he didn't only approve of me going to film school, he gave me a kick in the backside and gave me privilege and freedom and responsibility to do it and go do it well and to go full bore at it. So three of the greatest words I was told at the right time. And, you know, I've realized this now about parents. I think this is true. That was a rite of passage for me and my dad because he could tell by the way yes, I asked him. I said, I didn't even really ask. I said, I don't want to go to law school. I want to go to film school. He could tell by the way I said it that I wasn't being hasty with this decision. I had thought about it. And I think he could tell that I really wasn't asking permission. Right. And in hearing that inside, I didn't see him on the phone, but I know this is what was happening to him. In his head, he's going, that's my boy. That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted. We all want to make sure, you know, we give our children structure, but we kind of really want them to pop out of it one day and go, I'm not asking permission. This is the way I'm going. And we go,
there you go. Yeah.
You know, I think that's what happened with he and I in that conversation.
Yeah. So upon that, getting that blessing, and you're right, the three words they pretty much say everything that needs to be said there. Both gives you his blessing and tells you better not fuck it up. Right. Which is even cooler. You know. So the first role you get, you wind up in Dazed and Confused, which is where I first had come to know you, which is that outfit alone is just absolutely fantastic. As Wooderson, and you know, when you said something earlier, I was like, you know, there's definitely a little tinge of you in there. You had mentioned that you based this on your brother in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
So you get that first time that you're doing that. I mean, do you get nervous? Do you feel like, you know, I belong here, I'm just going to nail this? Or are you genuinely nervous? This is, I mean, your first film set, and you know, you nailed it, but you know, I gotta imagine that's a little nerve-wracking.
Well, the very first night that I worked, I was not supposed to work. Wooderson originally had 3 lines written. All right. And one of those lines was a classic, which is, that's what I love about those high school girls, man. I get older, but they say the same age. Like, I read that line and I was like, who is that guy? Right. Let's unpack that dude. So I get called to set to do what's called a hair and makeup wardrobe test, meaning they're shooting another scene. My character's not supposed to be in the scene, but when the director, Richard Linklater, gets a break, he'll come over and have a look. Oh, I like this with your hair, nice wardrobe, this, that, and the other. Well, that's what I step out of the trailer. Rick comes over. Oh, yeah, it's peach pants, Ted Nugent. Yeah, what's that, a pipe? Yeah, a Black Panther tattoo? Yeah, okay. And all of a sudden he goes, say, you know, Wooderson's got a guy who's probably been out with the typical hot chicks, you know what I mean? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, you think he'd be interested in the redheaded intellectual? I'm like, yeah, man, Wooderson likes all kinds of chicks. Well, Marissa Ribisi's playing the role of Cynthia. She's our redheaded intellectual girl. She's over here at the Top Notch Drive-In. She's got her nerdy friends in the back seat. And I don't know, maybe Wooderson, you could pull up and try and pick her up and tell her there's a party tonight and stuff. And I'm like, give me 30 minutes. So I take a walk and I'm like going to myself, who's my man? Who's my man? Who's my man? Who's Wooderson, right? Well, next thing I know, I got a lavalier mic on me and I'm sitting here about to shoot the very first scene, unscripted. And I'm sitting here, Marissa Ribisi's in a car over there. And I start saying to myself in my head, who is my man? What is Wooderson about? And I say to myself, I'm about my car. I'm like, well, I'm in my 70 Chevelle. There's one. Hi. And I look over and Slater's riding shotgun. I said, Slater's always got a doobie rolled up. There's 2. I said, I'm about rock and roll. I said, well, man, I got Ted Nugent Stranglehold cranking on the 8-track right now. There's 3. And just as I'm in my mind going through that, I hear action. And as I hear action, I look up at Cynthia, Marissa Ribisi, playing the redhead and intellectual over there that I'm supposed to pull up, go pick up. And I say to myself, and I'm about picking up chicks. Put it in drive, pull out. In my mind, I tell myself, I got 3 out of 4 going to get the 4th. All right. That's the first 3 words I ever said on screen. And they were the 3 affirmations of the 3 things I did have going to get the 4th.
Yep. And it's become, obviously, I've said it a million times throughout my life, and many people have. You mentioned in the book people have tattoos of it. And you know, you've embraced that, and in a lot of ways, but even the invitation to this show, I sent the link to Lori and the subject was all right. Because it fits. It just works.
You kind of want to go where more people said it's probably better. I mean, I hear it. I'm like, oh, I want to go there. You know,
I loved when you said it in your Oscar speech. Here you're winning the Oscar for such a role, an important role, and then he says that, and everyone's cracking up.
Right.
Well, you know, people ask me, do you get tired of it? And I got to be honest, no. But for the reason I just told you, that's the first 3 words I ever said on film 28 years ago. That on a night where I wasn't even supposed to work, and improvised the thing, riffed on it, just came out of my mouth. So the reason it's kind of an honor to hear it is I didn't know that night making that film, which turned out to be 3 weeks work, if that was going to be a one-off summer hobby that I had and never do it again.
Yeah, it's true.
It turned out to be a career that I love 28 years later. So I'm like, Every time I hear it, it's a callback to the very, very, very beginning. And I'm like, there we go.
That's great. So yeah, so that one was great. We talked about Time to Kill, which just to get back to that a little bit, because we didn't talk about the film much. This was, I know you had done one of the Texas Chainsaw Massacres after that, but huh? Oh, that was before.
Confused did the Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh, okay. So then you have when you hit Time to Kill, I mean, there's a lot of hurdles that you have to go through to get that main role. I mean, you wanted it. You were very clear in the book that you wanted that. It doesn't matter what the script said. Doesn't matter what they thought of you. You wanted that one.
But the studio didn't see you as that at that moment.
And I wasn't bankable enough. So, they needed a star in that role that they could greenlight the movie on. And I did not fit that bill.
And you said in the book they were thinking Woody Harrelson, right? Your friend.
Yeah, that's what I was told, that they were thinking Woody, that they were thinking Costner. I had heard different people brought up for it. But some things went my way that were out of my control at that time. I did plant the seed to Joel Schumacher. I think I should play the leader, Jake Brigance. And he goes, that's a great idea, but it's never going to happen for the reasons that I just shared with you. But I planted the seed and then over the next month and a half, 2 months, some things went my way. I think it was Sandra Bullock that had, I believe it was While You Were Sleeping, come out. And all of a sudden, and it was very successful. All of a sudden, she was a Greenlight star, and she was already in the role of Ro Ark, the third lead. So now they have someone in the third lead that has a little more box office mojo that she could greenlight a movie on her own. And now she's in the third lead. Grisham, who wrote the novel, had casting approval of Jake Brigance and the Carl Lee Haley role, played by Samuel Jackson. Samuel Jackson was already in. Well, Grisham would not approve Woody, as I understand it. And I got a call from Joel going, hey, the director, Joel Schumacher, hey, I want you to do a screen test for the role of Jake Brigance. I'm going to do it on this sleepy little studio in Fairfax on a Sunday. I think it was Mother's Day. And the reason we're going to do it there, we're not going to do it on studio lot, Matthew, is because even if you do really well in the screen test, you're probably not going to get the job. Studio is probably still not going to approve you. And I don't want it to go on your resume that you tried and failed, right? That would be, he tried out for it, didn't get it. Very considerate of Joel. Well, I read for it. And I got the role. I got a call from Grisham and Schumacher like 2 weeks later going, you want to be Jake Brigance? And I was like, hell yeah. And that was that.
Yeah. So once that happens now all of a sudden, throughout the book, you do touch on the fact that let's see, that's Lori's sirens going on. Throughout, you do touch on another thing, because sometimes you're doing the romantic comedies, and, then you almost have to do those to have some of the darker roles or the deeper roles that you want. But then there just became a point where you just decided that you had to almost rebrand yourself. You almost had to disappear for a little while to have kind of reboot the impression of what you were.
Yes. I've been doing romantic comedies. I enjoyed doing them. They paid me wonderfully as well. But they were so successful, and I was the go-to rom-com guy, that the studios, and I would even dare to say a lot of the American audience, didn't want to see me in anything else. No. So I wanted to do dramatic roles, but they weren't getting offered. Even if I took a major pay cut, the studios were like, nope, we're not putting rom-com shirtless McConaughey on the beach in a drama role, right? So. Right. Because I couldn't do what I wanted to do, I said, well, I'm going to stop doing what I've been doing. This was a tough choice because, like I said, I was doing well out of them and they were paying well. And I was about to say no to those. And I knew, Hollywood's probably going, stay in your lane, McConaughey. And I fully respected the rom-coms, but I just felt like if I kept doing them, it was going to even be harder to do the dramatic roles I wanted to do. So I went off to Texas, no beaches to be shirtless on. So for a total of 20 months, almost 2 years, I was not in your theater or in your living room in a rom-com. I was not shirtless on any beach. It was almost like, where the hell is McConaughey? Don't know where he is. I was kind of forgotten. Well, for 20 months being gone, just about at the 20-month mark, I was gone long enough to now be a new, novel, good idea for Lincoln Lawyer, Killer Joe, Paperboy, Bernie, Mud, Magic Mike, True Detective, Dallas Buyers Club. So I unbranded during that phase so I could then rebrand 20 months later. But I didn't know. I kind of took a one-way ticket to limbo. I didn't know. Who knows if that, if Hollywood would have never come calling with anything but rom-coms, I probably would be doing something different right now in my life.
Yeah, well, you mentioned that moment that time when you were away, when you were in Texas, that there was nowhere to go shirtless. However, there is one fantastic, legendary story about you that every time someone heard this news, they said, "Awesome." And that was the bongos. Okay.
I was more than shirtless in that scene.
Right. So, can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I tell you right now, everyone I knew, my friends, everyone, when we heard that story, it was like, awesome. Like, no one was like, there's nothing embarrassing about that. Because we've all.
It is kind of an extremely classic thing to get arrested for. It is one of the, I have that ticket framed.
Right. As you should.
Yeah. So look, I go into great detail in the book. So, and you read some of the details of some of my bright ideas I had with how to escape. Which are quite funny.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to give it away if you don't want to, but it's just an iconic moment in your career that doesn't have nothing to do with
about that the next day.
Right.
No, and there were bongo naked T-shirts all over Austin. And I remember, it was at the end of about a 36-hour partying journey I was on, and I was now time to settle on in and get some sleep. So I had my congas out there, put on this Henri de Conge, some of my favorite African blues, and started banging away. And I was having a great time. But evidently, I had to lift my window open because I had this great jasmine garden outside and breeze was blowing through and it smelled great. But it also meant the noise could get out. And there was some neighbor who instead of just doing what most everyone else should do, what Austin always did before, is you chunk a rock over at the house or something, or yell over. This guy, whoever it was, just called the cops. And 2 cops came in, bam. Next thing I knew, I'm pinned to the ground, arm behind my head. And I remember the one cop getting very excited when he saw my ID and saw it was me. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that pissed me off, because I was like, oh, you think you got a trophy? Now you SOB. So I resisted arrest heavily.
Heavily.
I resisted heavily. And my thinking at the time was, as they now had to arrest me, take me down to the precinct, and 5 cop cars had now pulled up, they obviously said, "You want to get dressed?" And not only did I not think that was a good idea, my thinking was, no fucking way am I putting anything on, because my nakedness is proof of my innocence.
Which is true. It's a great point.
I'm a show, man. I was defenseless. I was minding my own business. So they offer many times. We go down the precinct, and now they offer again. We're downtown Austin, about to walk in the precinct. One more time, Mr. McConaughey, can I put some? No. Don't even show me any clothes. So I go walking up, cuffed behind my hands, butt naked to the front doors of the precinct, and out comes this guy who, for about 6'6", and he was in his sort of, jail cottons, the pants with the number on them and the shirt. And he was holding some pants. And as he walked up, I looked at him, I was like, no way, man. Proof of my innocence. And he looked at me and he goes, man, we all innocent. And saying that and hearing it from somebody who was already in jail, I was like, I trust this guy.
It's probably not a good idea for someone like you to be naked in jail, now that you think about it.
And this was the first guy I believed. And so he knelt down, shimmied him up my legs, and I went in. And then the next morning, after 9.5 hours in jail, I had a choice to go to the right, where they had a car waiting for me. It would have been a private hidden getaway. And then they said, or you can go to the left. There's a whole bunch of press out front. And I remember going through my head, I was like, I don't regret anything I did. I have done this before. I will do it again.
I'll just close the window.
Yeah, I'll just close the window. And I went to the left and greeted the press. And evidently, I don't remember what I said, but I said something that made everyone laugh. And it became kind of obvious right then that everyone was in with, like what you were saying, Rob, awesome reason to get arrested.
Yeah, it was amazing. It's great. But yeah, so that was the one time that you were completely naked and people did know about it.
Shirtless, yeah.
Right, more than shirtless. So we only have about 15 more minutes, so I want to make the most of it. So I may jump around chronologically a little bit. And once again, though, I want to remind everyone, Greenlights is available both in book format, audiobook, Kindle, you name it. Again, I highly recommend the audiobook because you get the stories right from Matthew, and it doesn't sound like some of those audiobooks where they're like, okay, I got a green light, blah, blah, blah. Like Matthew's
Nobody would say
it.
there was a ghostwriter. This
Right,
is
exactly.
coming right from Matthew.
Yeah. So I would like to, there's one question I have about Scorpion Spring.
Oh, yeah.
Because you had, so you know where I'm going with this. So you mentioned in the book that, you had a couple of roles and I wouldn't say you were winging it, but it kind of came easy to you. You just put yourself in this place. You didn't over prepare. Just roll the cameras. I got this. But in Scorpion Spring, you had a full monologue in Spanish that was given to you, and you didn't even bother to check and read it.
I didn't know it was a monologue in Spanish until 5 seconds before we were supposed to call action, and I was on my mark. I had the bright idea that I had been overstudying for roles, and that's why I was getting too heady and not getting the roles. And now I got this blind offer for the Scorpion Spring, and I'm like, well, I'm going to go back to how I learned when I was Wooderson, when I had 3 lines and they turned in 3 weeks' work, and I just knew my man, and I just did what I would do. So I said, I'm not reading the script of Scorpion Spring. I'm not even reading the scene. All I have to know is my obstacle and what I want, and I'll just do what I would do. Bright idea, right? Yeah. And then our PA comes by right as we're about to yell action. She goes, Mr. McConaughey, you want to see some sides? And I guess I was feeling a little insecure about my plan because I said, yeah, let me see some sides. My thinking then was, I'll peek at the sides, which are the scripted scene, because if it's written well, I'll be like, well, of course, that's what I'd say. And if it's not written well, I'll just do my thing. Well, I look at page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, and it's a 4-page monologue in Spanish. All of a sudden, I get a bead of sweat come up on the back of my neck, and I'm like, to no one in particular, I say, can I get 12 minutes? The thinking was, 12 minutes will be not too much time to be inconsiderate to the crew, but maybe enough time to learn a 4-page monologue in Spanish because, hey, I took Spanish for 1 semester in the 11th grade.
You can't even learn that in English in 12 minutes.
Oh, I know. So I walk off and came back in 12 minutes, and I've never seen it. Too embarrassed to watch.
But here's the part that I wanted to ask that you did not touch on, which was, what exactly happened? You said I learned my lesson, but what happened? Like, you're on the set and now you have to speak.
I did it. I didn't tell anyone. I acted like I knew what the hell I was doing.
So you just like,
I know I didn't do a 4-page monologue in Spanish. I may have said something like, yo, porque yellow valgo. Maybe it's horrible. But then I think I probably just did what I did and then acted like that was a real choice of mine. Like, deliberate with how I just did that scene.
Well played. Well played, Matthew.
And you even came onto the set so sure of yourself, like you didn't want to talk to the cast or anyone. You didn't want to get to know them.
I'm going to be my man.
I'll bet you that movie does well after people read this book. People are going to go back to see that movie.
Yeah, I just want to see the scene.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I have no idea what's there. I don't remember what I did or didn't do. I do know I didn't do a 4-page monologue span.
All right, so with the last 10 minutes we have, I really do want to focus on this one area in your career that, to me, is without a doubt some of the most fantastic stuff was released at the same time, and that is, firstly, you do Dallas Buyers Club, which you win the Oscar for, but simultaneously, True Detective is what comes out. Okay, now, I remember seeing both of these and just being blown away. And I remember the opening scene of True Detective. They call you in, and there's you in character there. And in that 5 minutes, I was all in on that, like instantly. Like that just had me all in on the show and everybody talking about it. Now, on your list, 10 Goals in Life, win an Oscar was one of them.
And I wrote that list in 1992.
Wow.
Trust me, I found that list when I was writing the book. I was like, what? Yeah. Didn't even remember I'd written it.
So talk a little bit, if you can. I know it's not so much a question, but I'm so curious as to how that all works with that engine. You do Dallas Buyers Club, which you lose a tremendous amount of weight for. The film itself is great. The story is fantastic, and it's probably your best role, or one of the best, at least in my opinion. So once you do that and you know there's Oscar buzz, like, do you start to really want it? Because a lot of people pretend they don't, but of course you do. Like, of course you want to win it.
Hell yeah.
So
hell yeah. Yeah. Look, everyone sits around and you huddle, and you see the market bears what is going to be in consideration, and the pundits bear what you get heat, and you're on these meters, and you're up at number 4, then you're down to 12, and then the studios make a decision, and then I'd been on a run with quite a few award shows. I didn't win them all, but I had a pretty good record, won quite a few, and then you're all hoping that, boy, I hope I'm a nominee for Best Actor. I mean, I think everyone wants that if they're in the running for it and they have a chance. So I get nominated. Then there is okay, we've been on this kind of circuit. Well, now we're going to stay on the circuit, and you're going out, and there's parties where you go, and people want to talk to you about the film, about the role. So yeah, I wanted it. And ultimately ended up getting it. But I think anyone that tells you they don't want it would be, I don't know, probably fibbing. So I wanted it. I also, I noticed we were in the campaign when we would talk about it. One night I said to a large audience, and while we were on the campaign trail with the Dallas Buyers Club, I said, we made this movie in 25 days for $4.9 million. And I heard this collective gasp in the audience. And I was like, oh, that hit a nerve. And what I realized was all these other movies, one thing they can't do is underdog us. None of the other movies shot in that limited amount of time with that little of money. And I was like, make sure you say that each time, McConaughey, right? Mm. And I also remember talking to James Shamus at the time, who ran Focus, who was running the campaign, and I had said that to many audiences in LA, and every time got the gasp. And now we were about to head to New York, and I remember saying, "Look, I'm about to go to New York." Different audience, but I've been saying this $4.9 million, 25 days things. I've said it a lot. So I think I need I'm looking for another sort of go-to line that sets us up. And he interrupted me. He goes, "No, you keep saying that." I go, and I would think you probably would. And there was internet back then. It was like, oh no, that's spread. It doesn't matter where you are. But no, I went to New York and did 6 different talks, 6 different audiences. And every time I said it, same collective gasp. The word did not spread, or if it did, they were still surprised to hear it again. So that really helped stabilize Dallas Buyers Club in the underdog position, because nobody could really out underdog us. Mm-hmm. Then, my performance was what it was. I wasn't in a position. You get on the trail, you don't have to tell people why. You don't have to talk people into why you should like me. You're not on the trail going, hey, vote for me. You're not saying that. You're not saying, hey, but did you see when? You're not doing that. But at the same time, I write about this in the book. I had another secret weapon going on for me in my role as Ron Woodruff, and that was True Detective. Mm-hmm. I'm in your living room as Rustin Cole Sunday night. Quality show, quality character. And then the next night, I'm in your face campaigning for Ron Woodruff in a completely different role. And you're going, whoa, the dynamic of those two. I'm sure it helped. I'm sure it helped.
Yeah, I believe it did too. I believe, because both of them on their own are just absolutely fantastic.
And then Wolf of Wall Street is basically that same time as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wolf of Wall Street is at that same time. You're correct. So there's a whole nother color that I was able to emulate, and through that character, which was completely different than Rustin Cole or Ron Woodruff. So people were getting, I got McConaughey in 3 different roles, and there's a great dynamic here. And so in ways, I think it maybe impressed people for the Ron Woodruff because they saw 2 other sides in quality performances that were there simultaneously.
They see the reconnaissance, the McConaissance.
The McConaissance. Well, Matthew, I could talk to you for hours. I mean, there's so many great stories, but I don't want to ruin the rest of the book. And I know you have other places to be. So, I really do want to thank you for joining us and for just shedding some light on some of these great roles. There are so many movies here. I have pages and pages that are just going to go away and it'll be fine. but there's just so much more that you've brought to all of these roles, and we look forward to what you're going to do next, whether it's Naked Bongos or another great movie. We're ready.
And the book is so uplifting too, especially during this time.
Yep.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, some people are telling me they're finding the book to be good news in a time of some, bad news and upheaval, that they're finding it's given them some foundation. So that makes me happy. Yeah,
understandably so. It's a great book. And once again, Greenlights, check it out, whether it's audio, Kindle, get the book, check out the whole thing, because it's really it's a great listen, it's a great read, and it really does give us a better view into who you are. And yeah, you're a little Wooderson, and you're a little Lincoln commercial guy, and you're a little. All right.
If Matthew can rent BMW and Ducati motorbikes in Europe for $1,200 for 3 bikes for 30 days, anyone could do anything.
Quite cool. But we ran into a mensch. Johan was a mensch. I ran that shop. Oh.
You got lucky.
Yes.
I know. I think his wife is still beating him up over there. Matthew, thank you again.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. And
Lori, I appreciate it. Y'all be good. Happy holidays.
You too,
Matthew.
Best of luck. Okay. There it is, Lori. It's just another day in the whole podcast. Anyway, I want to thank everybody once again for checking us out. We have a flood of new subscribers. We have a flood of people checking us out as of late, and it's great. So,
and we know it's for us and not for Matthew.
Exactly, it has nothing to do with the guest. It's just about us. Yes, exactly. So, but once again, you can go to thewholepodcast.com and you can subscribe to us on YouTube, leave reviews if you'd like on iTunes. You have every single window on that website to subscribe to us. Check us out. I say it every week. We work on surprises for you all the time. Sometimes we don't know it's a surprise until it is, but check out everything on our site and subscribe, because you'll be notified every time there's a new episode. And that's it. Anything else, Laura, you'd like to add?
I'm still high from Matthew.
All right.
I'm still high and ready to play bongos for
Guys,
Matthew.
I know. I'm going to go do that right now, as a matter of fact. Let me go
I
grab
love that he's so honest about that story.
I know. I really thought that, too. I was like, this is, like, legendary when I heard it. I was like, that's awesome. Like, there's nothing to be ashamed of with that. It's fantastic. Anyway, thank you for listening to The Hole. I am Rob Sprantz.
And I'm Lori Levine.
Later, motherfuckers. All
Bye.
right, all right, all right.